what are the components of the strategic plan that any property management company out there should have if they want to take their company to the next level?
M&A, that's an obvious way that you can grow your business.
Being selective with the owners that you bring on, setting the right expectations. What's the strategy going to be? Maximizing occupancy or quality of the guests that you're deciding to bring on.
You're creating new problems that you have to solve because you're making a bigger company. That requires a very different approach.
There was a time where there was a lot of appetite from large players that were acquiring left and right. What are you seeing in terms of the M&A activity out there?
If you're in that position, it's because you didn't have a strategic plan figured out.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hospitality Edge podcast, where we bring together what we think are two sides of the same coin, real estate and hospitality. Today, I'm super excited to have Robin Craigen, a pioneer of this industry. And I'm extremely excited to speak with him today as an operator that has been in this industry for 26 years. He has seen a lot of ups and downs and has a very unique and interesting perspective around where the industry is at and where the industry is heading. So without further ado, Robin, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast.
Thank you, Sebastian. Super exciting to finally get to chat with you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to start with, the podcast being called The Hospitality Edge. You having been around for so long, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what sets you apart at, Moving Mountains in terms of the way that you guys deliver hospitality. What does hospitality mean to you, and how do you differentiate yourselves in the delivery of that hospitality in your business?
Well, you started with an easy question for me. I mean, hospitality is right there baked into our name. It really comes from the idea that we would move a mountain for our guests. And that's something that we brought from our days of running a luxury yacht in the Caribbean and realizing as we heard our guests saying at the end of a charter that was one of the best vacations that we've ever had, and realizing the type of guests we were working with, realizing, this is actually kind of cool to work with people, to be with people, having these kind of experiences. And to hear that at the end of the week, it became something of a thirst for us that we had to hear that. And we were trying to find a way to continue life on a yacht into life on land so that we could think about raising a family. And we hit upon the idea of setting up a catered ski chalet. It's somewhat similar. It might sound quite different, but it's actually very similar in concept of trying to take care of everything for those guests in a different environment. So moving it from being on the water to being in the mountains. And ski vacations, like sailing vacations, have their complications. And our method was, well, how can we simplify that? How can we think about ways to anticipate the guest needs and to make their vacation better in any possible ways? So it's about, to some extent, it's about being willing to express to the guests, we'll move a mountain for you. We'll do whatever it takes. It's part of the reason why I love that book, Unreasonable Hospitality, because it's kind of an unreasonable proposition that you're making to the guest is we'll do what it takes. And, you can say it many other ways. The answer is yes, tell me the question. It's not that you can say truly yes to everything, but, we put our heart and soul into this, and we try to think of any way, unreasonable or reasonable, that we can deliver exactly what the guest is looking for, because we want to hear that expression. That was one of the best vacations we've ever had.
Okay, so that's very good, Robin. So anticipating, the needs from guests and doing what's, necessary, even when it's unreasonable, or even when it can be, hard to achieve what the guest is asking for. And I hadn't thought of it that way, but yes, moving mountains. What a good way to describe what hospitality.
We're here to move a mountain for you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it can feel like.
A vacation is made up of so many different things, and the parts that we can control are whether the home is as represented on our website, whether it's clean, whether it's easy to find, whether the arrival experience is fun, and whether it was easy to book, and all those kind of things. And we have often said, if the guest has an easy experience getting here, booking the trip, getting here, the easy arrival, don't have a big snow day when they're coming in, and let's just say that the weather cooperates for the entire stay, and they leave at the end of the week, they're going to say that was a great trip, but they're never going to have any idea of the kind of response that we're capable of mounting should there be some kind of a challenge. And I think it's that mindset of it's often when things aren't perfect, and that may be something we did, or maybe it's just something that happened with that guest, and how we can respond, the difference that we can make. We have this saying, it's one of our core values: every challenge is an opportunity. And it's the team has become trained to look for those moments, because it's those moments that your guests are actually going to notice who you are. It's those moments where the guest is going to say, thank God I didn't book some Airbnb with some faceless host who is perhaps on vacation somewhere in Florida. Well, here I am in Colorado, and I'm trying to figure out, how I can have a better ski vacation, and everything's maybe not going perfectly. So
I love that.
I
I love
think
that
it's as
mindset.
much how we meet the challenges that has turned the corner with many of our guests.
Yeah, no, I really like that mindset. It's like, rather than trying to have everything go perfectly, of course we try, but we can't control a lot of the things that can go on. Rather, making it about how do you decide to respond to that, right? And that becoming your differentiator. Now, Robin, for those out there that are not familiar necessarily with your company, your background, and just give us a sense of like what you guys have accomplished in the past 26 years. We'll get into the timeline and the lessons, but at a big picture, from where you started to where you are now, give us a sense of where you're at, team wise, inventory wise, locations wise, just so that we get a sense of how long of a journey you've traveled since you started this.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a journey. And I mean, to give you a sense of where we are today, you heard me say we started with one home in Colorado, and transitioning an experience that we used to offer on a yacht into a home on the side of a mountain in a ski resort in Colorado. Today, we manage about 250 luxury homes across 4 ski markets. So we're in Steamboat, where we began, Breckenridge, Vail, Beaver Creek. We have just launched our Oceans division, which is booking yacht charters in the Caribbean. So we've actually made that return after 26 years back to our roots.
Full circle.
It's quite amazing. And I mean, that might sound completely off the walls, people, but what we've identified is the kind of people that are taking ski vacations are the kind of people that want to feel the wind in their hair on a sailing yacht or on a power yacht, cruising through the islands. So we're starting with familiar territory, but we do have the idea that this will expand into the potential to book charters around the world. And very much, not just booking any old boat, but us taking the time to research and curate those experiences so that, again, the guest is going to thank us for helping them plan. These are complex vacations with a lot of money at stake, and to plan and execute on that so that the guest comes back and says, that was another incredible vacation, and we couldn't have done that without you. So that's our MO as far as yacht vacations. And then it seems very natural to us to expand into the world of beach destinations, looking at luxury villas. We've been exploring some options to do this in Costa Rica, and we're evaluating now options to do this in Mexico and other parts of the Caribbean as well.
That's interesting. Wow, that's very, very impressive. From one home to now 250, luxury properties, and expanding.
And it only took us 26 years.
Exactly. That's the best part, right? Like,
that's the less than sexy message that I think, around the industry. I heard you talking with Rachel all day from Abode, and she said it really well. It's like, the newer arrivals to this industry don't want to hear how long it took us to get here. And we've done it very slowly and methodically. And like her and her husband, we celebrated many of the individual homes that we signed in the early days, because every one of those was a building block upon which that became a foundation for growing our business. And our path to growth was extremely slow and steady. We're totally bootstrapped. We didn't come into this with a lot of money. So every property we took on, it comes with a certain obligation to meet the commitment to that owner. And you need to make investments in staff and eventually in technology and systems and processes. And at the same time, we're also raising a couple of kids and trying to keep our heads above water. So, for us, the path to growth, it was 10 years before we even had 10 homes in the company. And we were very, very slow and thoughtful and somewhat living, hand to mouth. Moving the business away from our kitchen table was a significant step, and hiring our first office employees. I mean, everyone can talk about the times that they had those moments. Now we have a team of 75 full-time employees, and seasonally, I think we had 130, 140 people on the clock, with all the other services that we provide in the winter. So we've become quite a big operation in the last 5 years. And a lot of that is tied to the decision to go beyond the bounds of Steamboat Springs and explore other mountain markets. And now you can hear me talking about, well, having achieved that, the guests are coming back saying, what else you got? And our idea is, well, we kind of like the idea of doing yacht charters. And without even launching this, we booked 2 charters. And we're behind that. We're building a yacht that will go into charter. It'll be kind of our flagship. Okay. It's retelling the story of the boat that we used to run, because the boat we used to run was called Endless Summer 2. This is an evolution going from a monohull to a catamaran, similar kind of size, but she'll be known as Endless Summer 3.
Wow, that's very interesting. And when it comes to, when you realize how long building a good solid company can take, it changes your perspective of the time horizon in which you look at things. I think we were talking about this earlier, how you hear a lot of people nowadays in the industry that are complaining or perhaps having a negative view on what's happening, and with so much inventory and demand not growing as fast as the inventory is growing, and then the macro economic scenario and where we're at when it comes to that. But you've gone through those ups and downs, and you are here, right? So what do you think that having been around for so long gives you in terms of a perspective when you're looking at what people might be freaking out about, if they're only concentrated on the today and the tomorrow and the next 6 to 12 months, versus when you take that step back and you're like, no, I've been doing this for 26 years, and it's a different mindset, it's a different perspective.
I agree. I think a lot of what you're speaking to is things that I have also heard on your podcast before about that this is a relationship business, and relationships, the kind of relationships we have with owners and guests, are not something you can just commoditize and just acquire overnight. The foundation of that is trust, built up sometimes over many years. The average owner is staying with us 7 to 10 years. So you have to be in business more than 10 years to even know that. And I mean, I do look at the people that are new to the industry who announce that, I'm in 5 markets and I have 350 homes, and we've been going 2.5 years. And I'm like, I honestly don't know how you can achieve that without, you can achieve it in a time of unprecedented demand when what you're offering, maybe there are markets out there that are completely underserved. So you're stepping into an opportunity that initially you're filling a gap. But what's going to keep you moving forwards is you have to have a solid business model behind that. And, part of what gets you through the ups and the downs in the industry is being able to communicate, have conversations with owners, say, you know, it was incredible what we just went through in 21, 22, coming out of COVID and just trying to keep up with the demand. And a lot of what we were focused on was literally trying to manage our way through that situation. I mean, COVID was running still rampant through the communities that we work in. So you could be still battling staff sickness, and we run a tight ship. So when one person's off sick, that stretches everybody, and when half the crew is down, that's almost impossible. And somehow we made it through some of those challenges. Um, you come out of that and you find that demand is going down, and you're now having to communicate different expectations to those owners, and you don't want them to have the impression that, well, the reason you're not making so much money this year is because we really don't know what we're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
or we're not working hard enough, and or we don't have the right tools or the right people. And I think that our owners understand, because we do put so much into explaining what it is that we do, and building trust, that if we can say, listen, expectations need to be tempered here. We're coming off a peak, but we still see we're seeing long-term booking patterns returning. We're seeing the average lead time extending out again, which is also kind of reassuring, especially in a snow business. Every reservation we take for the winter now is a hedge against the weather. We're
Mm-hmm.
not waiting for people to start booking when they see the snow flying in November. We're typically 70 to 80% booked by then. And that is a lot to do with having the right kind of properties and working with the right clientele that specifically, if they know that if they don't book that house, because we only have one of that home offering those specific amenities, that there's a very good chance that they won't get that house next year. So maybe you can argue that that might be a useful thing in our portfolio, having a lot of unique supply. But at the same time, you got to do your work in order to get the trust with the clientele to actually book that kind of accommodation that far out at that price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you just mentioned a very important word there, and you were referring to it on both the guest side and the owner side, which is trust. And is one of those things that compounds the most with time, right? So the longer you've been in business, I mean, if your average owner stays with you for, 10 years, that is 10 years that you've had to build trust, right? So now you're going through difficult times. It's, I don't want to say easier, but you're much better positioned to go out there and have a conversation with your owners and explain what's happening, and they're gonna understand it, because you have those 10 years to back you up of trust that has been
Right.
built. Now, what would you say to someone that doesn't have 10 years, that they have behind a relationship with an owner? What are some of those foundational ways in which you would approach trying to establish that trust while we're going through what we're going through, in terms of, like, you're not starting by setting trust or building trust while during good times, but rather you're having to start that process, quote unquote, in the middle of a bit of a downturn. So how would you tackle that? What would you advise to property managers that are trying to go through that, setting the right expectations with the homeowners and trying to build trust while not necessarily having, the best results to showcase for at this time being?
Sebastian, I'd say, my first comment would probably be authentic from the beginning to the end. You know, don't come in with a flashy sales pitch that you can't deliver on. So be who you want to be to this person. So establish authentic ground rules, that when you're looking to onboard somebody into your portfolio, it's really important to you that you're aligned as far as your goals and your ambitions for that relationship. I did I did kind of learn this from one of my owners who shared this feedback on a video testimony he was doing for us, and he said, halfway through the interview, I realized that it wasn't just me interviewing him as to whether he was going to be my manager. he was sitting there checking out whether I was going to be a fit for him. So I think this alignment of goals, what is it you're looking to use the property for? Why would our services benefit? Is a little bit of it should be a two-way conversation. Unless you are truly in the mode where you'll say, I'll take anything, which I don't think is a really strong foundation for this business for the long term. We've all been there where we have taken properties that we regretted. So I can tell you that part of why we do it this way now is because we learned the hard way is that doesn't work to just take things because they walk in the door. Be specific. Who do you want to be in the marketplace? Make sure that the homes that you take on are a fit for your business model. Offer a specific range of services that may not be just like everybody else, but look at your competitors, figure out what you can do better, because you always want to be able to say, without pulling down your competitors, you want to be able to say, if you're a fit, then these are the reasons why we are the best option for you in the marketplace. And I can say to our owners, our business development team does this really well, is, we're not the company that's going to book your house the most number of nights. And that might initially create a reaction. Like, what do you mean? You're telling me you can't do as good as the other guys? And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not our business model. Our business model is to be a high yield, low touch model. So we recognize that every night that someone stays in your home, cumulatively that can add up to some wear and tear. So in order for you to give up the use of your home to share your home, these owners, they want to have some meaningful revenue. So our business model is geared towards optimal returns on the rental nights and minimizing the wear and tear. If we notice that the home is booking like crazy, we'll intentionally increase the rate to lower the occupancy and improve the yield. So I think that's kind of different to some general strategies that are out there. I can't tell you that our model would work for everybody, but it has worked for us. And part of that language, that conversation about this is going to be meaningful. If we do rent your home, we're going to send you a check for thousands of dollars, ideally even tens of thousands. And owners, when they start to see those checks coming in, they get excited. And when they come back and see their home, and their reaction that we hear from them is that they can't believe the house was even rented once, for how good it's looking, then we're also coming through on another part of the deal. You can't just promise that you're not going to notice the difference. You have to put time and energy into your housekeeping and your maintenance and your quality assurance teams so that every detail is being captured. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's so many pieces to this.
A lot of pieces. And, from what you're saying about, being selective with the owners that you bring on, setting the right expectations, what's the strategy going to be? Is it going to be a strategy of, maximizing occupancy, or is it going to be a strategy of, quite the opposite, really being selective with, the volume of each reservation that you decide to accept, the quality of the guests that you're deciding to bring on and whatnot. Even there can be so much discrepancies between what you think is best versus the owner thinks is best if you don't have that communication up front, right? So I think that's crucial. Now, going back to that positivity theme we were discussing earlier, when you hear those people being, negative and pessimistic about where the industry is at right now and where it might be going, what do you have to tell them? What's your take on where we're at, and what's your take on what's ahead, and how are you sort of, navigating this period internally?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I think most property managers couldn't get through, but if they are noticing that the booking patterns are down and certain channels are not producing in the way that they used to, I think it would be an opportunity to evaluate every piece of how you do. If we're talking about the sales side of things, how you distribute, do you have a direct booking strategy? Can you make that work? I have heard from others that I know really well in the industry that, they just cannot logistically make a direct booking strategy work, the cost to deliver that experience doesn't justify the returns, or the returns don't justify the cost. But I think you've got to be paying attention. You can't just be on Easy Street and say, "Well, I'm just going to list on Airbnb." If you're a one-off, one owner, one property, and you are looking to ride the market wherever it is, and you're willing to pay attention and look at how your bookings are going, maybe you can wiggle your way through that. But I think you're going to be down in the bottom of the rate segment, fighting for every booking based on a dollar price. And there's some sayings that you can pick up from that. I heard this at a conference, which I've held on to for a long time, is like, to win a client on a dollar is the opportunity to lose them based on the same thing the next year. That's not what brings people back to us. It's about experience. So yes, the transaction matters and they have to feel the value, but they're probably going to react and desire to book you again based on how you made them feel, as opposed to what you did for them. I think if you fail to meet their expectations, you're not going to get that call. But if you provide them with a clean home with nice linens and it's easy to get in, but they basically booked you because it's the cheapest price in the market, and you beat someone else out by $10, well, that's maybe not going to be a client unless you invest in relationship, unless you invest in connection. Then you're probably going to be back to fighting for the bookings on Vrbo or Airbnb or booking the next year. And that client isn't really going to think of you as, that's my trusted go-to in that market. Whereas the other way around for us has been, people call back the next year and they call and they say, "What house do you have for me?" And I know so many in the industry that have these amazing relationships with the guest, that either the guest rebooks when they leave, or when they call back because they maybe are coming at a different time with a different group, and they maybe are looking within our portfolio for something that fits, or as we're experiencing now, we've moved into other markets and they say, "We've had so many great experiences in Steamboat, we would love to try Breckenridge with you."
Mm-hmm.
Then that from the tone of the conversation, that they're not going down Vrbo looking at the price per night and trying to decide if Moving Mountains is going to get their business this year.
Yeah.
It's more like they're calling back and they're saying, "What can we do with you this year?"
That's it. And when first of all, where are you at currently in terms of your direct bookings? Let's say, what percentage of your, overall bookings come from direct sources, whether that's repeat guests or just, direct booking website traffic?
Consistently, we've been between 70 and 75%. I think as some new distribution channels have come online, actually, I don't think our direct business volume has decreased, but as a percentage of the overall business, some of these new channels are starting to bring us to some new clients. 70% plus is where we are
That's
right now,
amazing.
which I know a lot of people are perhaps, even if they have a blended strategy, they might be the other way around. They might be 30% direct and 70% distributed. But that's the part, that takes time.
Yeah.
That's
No,
the
it
hard
does
part. You
take
can't
time.
rush that.
You can't rush it. And I really I liked your quote there. If you win a client or a guest by $1, you'll also lose them by $1 next time. So, okay. Now I would like to get some, tips on what has allowed you to get to where you are currently in terms of, 70% direct. Of course, there's the, element that's just going to take time, and it's like, well, just wait 26 years and you might be here. But what are other things that you have implemented that you think have made a difference, that are perhaps more actionable for people out there that might be listening? What would you say has worked for you to have such good results in terms of direct bookings overall? Is it just from a CRM perspective, the kind of retargeting campaigns, little touches in the property branding wise where they can see who you are, and or does it really just come down to just do what needs to be done, do it well, and do it for many years, and it's gonna come.
Yeah, I think some people think that it's just one or two things, and that will get you there. I mean, we've done work on building. Our mindset is we're building a brand. So, Moving Mountains as a brand that stretches now across multiple mountain destinations, and now is expanding into different vacation experiences. We're moving away from the idea that moving mountains is that the mountains part is where we're located, and that's somehow part of our name. We're here to
Hmm.
move a mountain for our guests. So it's
Hmm.
truly an experiential hospitality, even unreasonable hospitality experience. I do feel like those two go hand in hand with our name and with everything that's in that book. That's what's so valuable about that book. If you haven't read it and you're not sick of hearing people recommending it on podcasts, I'd say go read it if you haven't. But I would say yes, you've got to do branding. Yes, you've got to do marketing campaigns. You've got to play the SEO game. You've got to have a great website. If you are thinking beyond one home, and you have a business strategy that says, I'm going to grow to manage multiple homes and maybe multiple homes in multiple markets, there is one thing that's so easy to say here, and that is you cannot do that without culture. And so company culture, that is probably one of the game changers for us.
Hmm.
We always had a feeling of camaraderie and common goals and all the rest of it. But when we sat down with a business consultant friend, and he said, I really think what you should try and do is write down your culture and really kind of make sure that everyone in the company understands what you think the culture is. My first reaction is, well, why do we need to do that? Everyone knows what we're doing and why we're trying to do it and how we're doing it. We're here to move a mountain for the guests. It's
Hmm.
simple. And we dug into it and we identified core values and a mission statement, and we came up with a thing called our code, which is sort of a guideline of how we as a team should act. So things like don't take it personally, don't make assumptions, trust your team, always act with integrity. These are values that are now verbalized. We have culture walls in our office. Our culture is something we try to weave into team discussions, management meetings, team meetings. In 2 weeks' time, we're bringing the entire company together to do an all-company retreat for spreading over 5 days, 2 days with everybody, and 5 days with our leadership team, and culture runs at the core of that. And it's like if you have ambitions with your business, you better not forget to do culture and do it with your team. Um, those values, they become the as one of my wonderful general managers said to me the other day, it's my guiding light. And it's been my
Hmm.
guiding light for the last 10 years that I've worked at this company. And she's not afraid to talk about that at any opportunity. It's like, if this is my guiding light, this needs to be your guiding light. And we reference that, and then we call it out when we do something. I mean, every challenge is an opportunity, is sort of every challenge is an opportunity. There's many challenges in the business, and turning that mindset of which they also speak to in unreasonable hospitality is saying, what's the opportunity here? Well, if I don't have to explain what you need to do in a certain circumstance because you as a one member of our team understand that one saying, you can solve that problem and come back and say, this is what I did, and it's going to check the box as this is what I did, and this is how I met the challenge. And that is happening like day after day now, with over 100 employees. You can't watch everybody, and I'm just amazed at what they do with this.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were talking before we started recording here on how your role has sort of evolved with time, where at first you maybe were involved in the day to day. Now it's more strategic and more on the coaching side of things. But then it's like, okay, what should you be coaching on, right? What are the things that you should be passing along to your team? And it's like you can either be passing along very specific procedures, right? Like that's the standard operating procedure mindset of like, oh, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do that. But it's like there's gonna be infinite, number of those one-offs that can take place. Whereas if you pass on the values or the framework through which you should be thinking about these problems, then that becomes all of a sudden much more, I would say, scalable. And at the end of the day, you're actually, to your point, building culture, which in turn will build brand, which is kind of like it's a cycle, right? Because you take care of your people are going to take care of your guests, and then your guests are going to come back, and then your owners are going to be happy. So
it's the circle of life. It's the circle of life for sure. Yeah, I mean, in the early days of working directly with the guests, driving them to and from the airport, taking them to the ski slopes in the morning, putting meals out, putting rooms together, I feel like we were learning what is it that this business needs. So we become students of our own business by doing many of those things. But as the company evolved and you realize that you can't do everything, and we've gone through the necessary growth stages of hiring employees first and then eventually managers and then training those managers. And I could tell you that many times, yes, it is, you need to do this, you need to do this, do that, don't do that, and keep going. And you are much more like the coach on the sidelines of a football game saying, we're going to do this play, we're going to do this play, and how you get through those situations. You're calling the shots. And I think that that's the role that many property managers find themselves in. And it's an exciting time because you are the center of the universe. I've seen the people that are taking calls at the conferences, still running their business, putting out fires, and I'm excited when I can tell them that no, my phone's not ringing with any guest issue, not any operational issue. I'm going to probably hear about something, a big fire, and not necessarily a fire, but I'm going to hear about the big things. But I'm probably going to hear most of that stuff on a weekly call, like, oh, this happened this week. And it's a little bit like the experience, what I've gone through that I think is an exciting place for us to get to now, is that it's like teaching your kids to walk. You've got to let them fall over at some point. You're going to hold their hand. They're going to wobble. You're going to catch them the first few times, but there are going to be those moments when they're going to stumble and fall. And it's that willingness that both Heather and myself have had, is to say at some point, and this was really hard, the first time that this concept was run by me, is when somebody is sitting in front of you and they say, I've got this issue, and you say, well, how you think you're going to handle that? And then they say, well, what do you think? And you have to get yourself to the point. If you want to get to this place, you have to be able to say, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what you think. And I look forward to hearing how this goes.
Man,
and that is
so good.
Terrifying the first time I had to learn how to say that, because it feels like you've totally given up control. But if you did everything that you should have done up to that point, your toddlers are going to become kids, are going to become teenagers and young adults and make great decisions. And it's like that. You are continually coaching, but that mindset is towards, at some point, you are going to have to make this decision without me. And for the most part, I mean, there's mistakes made, and we certainly don't do everything perfectly, but we're fast learners. And I have been so impressed with our team at just how they've taken that and run with it. And they come back, and I mean, we're having the best. We just had the best year that we've ever had, and we're taking on bigger and better challenges. And we couldn't do that if Heather and myself were still sitting in budget meetings and advising people. You need to manage your housekeeping tighter. Now the operations team, the operations director, is taking that initiative, working with our accounting director, and they are fine tuning and running their budgets without us.
Yeah, no, and I think you just describe it perfectly, right? It's that feeling of like, I know what to do, or I think I know what to do. I could tell them what to do, But if I do that, I would be making them a disservice and I wouldn't be helping. And I think of it as, I don't remember in which book I read of the concept of like focusing on production versus production capacity, right? Production being more short term, like I'm going to fix the problem today versus I'm going to help build the problem solver for tomorrow's problems, right? So,
It's a
yeah.
great
And
challenge. Sometimes you really got to take one step back to go two steps forwards, because you want to just solve the problem. There is a time when you think, I'll just do this myself, or I'll just tell you what the answer is. And when you find yourself not having to do that, I mean, there are times when I would say I wouldn't have done it that way, but I can't argue with the outcome.
right. Or sometimes, perhaps it took a little bit longer for the problem to be solved than if you had stepped in. But then again, on the long term view of things, at least they learned the lesson. Now, do you think there's such a thing as waiting too long before starting to let go of the day to day and starting to delegate? Do you think there's such a thing as like operators perhaps taking too long to
I think
start
if you're in
delegating?
that position that you waited too long, it's because you didn't have a strategic plan figured out. And if you're living day to day, that's probably going to be a reason why in 5 years' time you'll look back and say, I should have hired a general manager. I should have put some directors in this business. I mean, all of that requires some level of scale. Um, but I think all the companies that are scaling effectively are making those steps because they've identified that they want to get to a certain size. And when you can get to a certain size, you can have a certain level of structure in there and you can look for the employees that are going to step up and take on additional responsibilities. So it does, kind of growth is required in order to achieve that organizational structure. I mean, you have to get to a certain number of employees before you can sustain an HR position, but that's been a gift for us. Having someone who is there specifically for the employees. So we make that investment of that position because we want to support our team, and we realize that having someone dedicated to HR means that we have clear, known policies. We have guidelines. We are working to be a better place to work every year, listening to our employees and figuring out what we can do better. And that's just another area that as we've grown, we've been able to focus on that. There was a time when it was between Heather and myself, hiring and firing of people. And I can't say that I was the most gifted person at doing job interviews and picking the right people. Now, I meet employees when I walk into one of our offices and I'm going, okay, here's a face I don't recognize. And that's happening more and more. It's happening. I walk into homes and or I go to meet a past guest who's coming in from out of town. Who's like, hey, can we catch up? Someone who maybe there was one a couple of years ago, goes back 26 years to sailing trips we've done, and she called up and said, hey, we're staying at one of your houses in Steamboat. If you're around, let's catch up. And I walk in and she's like, well, what's the story with this house? And I'm like, this is the first time I've been in this house. I don't even know what it's. I don't know the owner. I barely know the name of the home, and to be honest, I don't need to. And it's not that I don't care. It's just I don't need to. There's 20 other people between me and this homeowner, and all the things that are required, that we've gotten it to the point where it would have been a limitation on our ability to scale if I had to know every owner. And I knew that when we got to 100 owners in Steamboat, and then we started taking on owners in the Vale market, and then we expanded the company into the Breckenridge market. So, that is just a mindset of you've got to let some things go at some point.
Yeah, and I liked something you said there about, if you get to a point where you're even thinking that, it's taking too long before you delegate or let go of certain things, it means that you don't have a strategic plan. And you are, spending a lot of your time now on strategy, and, you've been attending, VRMA, executive retreats and things of that nature. So I'm curious to know what do you think are the components of a strategic plan as far as you see it? What are the components of your strategic plan, or the strategic plan that any property management company out there should have, if they want to really, take their company to the next level? How do you think through that framework of what a strategic plan should look like?
Well, we have more of a strategic plan now than we did, say, 5 years ago. So,
For sure.
I mean, we've met consultants, we've worked with different people in the industry. When you, what I love about this industry is that you go to a conference and you'll meet the other managers, you'll find the people that are like you, and
Mm-hmm.
then they are so willing to share. So, my strategy in going to conferences was to learn from others. And when I
Mm-hmm.
started doing that, the more I did it, the more I learned. I mean, there's never been a single event I've been to that I haven't come home with 10 ideas about, things we could do better, things we should focus on more. And that's what keeps it interesting for me. Like, how do you keep it fresh after all this time? Well, there's still something to learn. It's something I used to say about sailing. There's not a day that goes by that you don't think, oh, I could have done that better.
Yeah.
And like, when you're in an environment where the conditions are changing all the time, in this industry we're dealing with the macroeconomic trends. You're dealing with internal issues. You're dealing with owner. There may be a change in owner behavior, such as we've had in the last 2 years. We had a sort of a tidal wave of owners cashing in on real estate appreciation and deciding to sell their home,
Mm-hmm.
and then us fighting and having to adjust to how do we keep managing that home. We're the current manager, with the incumbent manager. How do we keep that relationship with the home as we transition to a new owner? And it's like being able to adapt to the ever changing environment. That's kind of what keeps you going. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, the strategy is learn from others. I listen, I'm a compulsive consumer of podcasts, and I love how much information people have shared on that. And many times I'm doing a pullover moment and literally pulling over and writing something down because I don't want to forget what I just heard. And
Mm-hmm.
I can go back and implement that with our team. They're always looking. Well, what are you thinking now? And I I have some original ideas of my own, but I got a lot of ideas that I've acquired from other people in the industry who just brought their perspective and their ideas, and it was a game changer for us.
What would you say is one of the last things that you've learned or have been exposed to at a trade show, or listening to a podcast, that you've been like, wow, even though you've been doing this for so many years, still, somewhat of a new idea that you've, decided to implement?
I'm going to say unreasonable hospitality. I think Amy Hinote's conference, the Durham conference in Nashville, and seeing Will speak live to us, that was a complete inspiration for me. And the all company retreat that I mentioned we're doing in a couple of weeks, the theme of that retreat is unreasonable hospitality. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of refreshing our minds, coming at what we do from a slightly different perspective, and really leaning into the idea that maybe the 95-5 rule that Will talks about is that you know save 5% of your fund for the totally unreasonable acts. And I have asked our team to think about the ones that have already happened before we even had the concept of unreasonable hospitality spoken about within our company. Everybody in the company is getting a copy of the book at the retreat, but we are making it. The thing that I love about the book that I'll speak to briefly here is Will talks about going on a journey, looking at the customer journey, and looking at ways to improve that. So how they moved from the beginning of the book from being told you're 50th on the list of the world's top restaurants to eventually becoming the number one restaurant in the world. He said it was clear to us at the beginning that everyone in the room was already serving great food in an incredible environment, and that it was going to be really hard to win your way to the top of the list just by doing the basics. So it was looking for the extra things. It's the way you make people feel. And this is why I think why our culture delivers, is people within our team have taken our culture and used it as a guidebook and said, okay, in this situation, I'm going to do this. And one example was a guest who was injured skiing and had to be flighted down to Denver for medical treatment. Family had to rush down there, to take care of them. And, that left them with all of their things still in Breckenridge, in the home that they were staying in. And yet all of them were down in Denver supporting their family member. Well, one of our team just went to the house and took it upon herself. She packed up everything that was in the house, put all their bags together, threw it in the car, and she drove the luggage down to the place where they were, to the hospital, and delivered that to them, and said, we just were thinking of you guys, and realized that this is something that you're going to need. And it's like, that is an unreasonable act. That's not something, we didn't charge the guest for that. That is not something that the guest is like, hey, you need to do this for us. It's just something we did. And it's like, you need to look, we're training our team now, is you need to look for these opportunities. So it's like a refresh of we are here to move a mountain for you. Because I would often say to the team, are we really doing that? Are we really moving mountains for people? And it's like, through unreasonable hospitality, I can truly say, yes, there have been moments when we have gone above and beyond, and those guests are never going to forget. And some of these gestures can be very, less significant than that. It can just be a gesture. It's empathy in many cases. But it's the way you make people feel is what they're going to remember.
Yeah, no, that's huge. That's huge. Now, let's talk a little bit about, the growth strategies. And, you've, of course, grown your portfolio, your inventory organically for the longest time. And you've also gotten into the mergers and acquisitions game, if we can call it a game. So what can you tell us about where you see, the M&A landscape nowadays? There was a time where there was a lot of appetite, right, from large players that were sort of acquiring left and right. I think we've seen a slowdown in terms of those, at least the volume of those kind of acquisitions. But what are you sort of seeing in terms of the M&A activity out there, and what are some of the trends that you can speak about, whether that's multiples or reasons why people are deciding to sell, or overall, just what are your thoughts on M&A activity?
Well, M&A in itself, I mean, that's an obvious way that you can grow your business, especially if you have ambitions to go into new markets. But I think our view on M&A is very different to others that have done it in bigger and better ways. These companies that we've been fortunate to acquire, in many cases, were years in the making. It was a relationship-based conversation. These are companies that have been nurtured for many years by the people that founded them, grew those portfolios, and everyone cares. We care a lot about the people in our team, and we care about the relationships with the owners. So finding a good place for that to go, if you're going to exit from the business, if you're going to move on, then you have to be a trusted place that someone who's going to take it, nurture it, and move it to the next level, is going to respect the work that you've done, and ideally elevate that experience, or at least match that experience for those owners. And so I think to bring that to one place, we're very thoughtful about the growth that we've taken, the growth steps we've taken. It's stretched us incredibly hard. Our team has worked incredibly hard to make that happen. Acquisitions are not easy. I think to do it at scale requires it's another business activity in itself. You need a team of people to manage that for you. And in many cases, you're creating new problems that you have to solve, because you're making a bigger company. That's more people to manage. We've gone from being 20, 30 employees to over 75 full-time. And that requires a very different approach you have to be ready for that. And we were fortunate to do it over the first, to do it over 3 years, 4 years now. And I'd say we learn every day that we can do it better. Some of our more recent challenges have come from us not doing it as well as we wanted to. But we're learning as we go. But so it doesn't lead me to say that in our current state we can just go out there and buy up 20 companies next year. I just think that that's not within our means. But if the right opportunity came along, and we're vetting one of those right now, and I think it really is a great opportunity, and it's something that is a low-hanging fruit that can fit with our team, and we can learn from doing this first step, and it can take us on to other opportunities. Then I'd like to think that we would be the kind of place that someone would call us and say, I was thinking of selling. I'd love to sell to a company like you. And that's sort of you might be waiting a long time before you get that phone call. Maybe you've got to knock on a few doors or at least talk to a few people. But that is more the nature of our M&A activity, is it's very, very relationship based. But I think the outcome is that we've been able to grow our brand. So we haven't necessarily gone into that and say, okay, well, we're going to keep your brand and keep you running as you were. Our intention was to create other places for our Moving Mountains guests to have new experiences. So we have branded those as Moving Mountains. I have seen other companies following that strategy, and I've seen mixed results in terms of how well that has worked. The challenge is you want to be recognized for the good things about your brand, not the bad things. And the companies that have done it at scale and mostly seem to be talked about as for the high level of churn, the lack of rental performance, the lack of focus to details, which again I would bring it back to it's because there's a lack of culture and guidance for the team, and the people are out there trying to do their jobs, and they just don't know what's expected of them.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. And by the way, I apologize if you can hear some noise in the background. There seems to be a smoke alarm going on, fire alarm. But
Every
it's all
challenge
good.
is an opportunity right now.
Every challenge is an opportunity. We'll try to wrap up without the noise interrupting too much. Before we wrap this up, what would you say is the one piece of advice? We've shared a lot of them already, but if you could only share one piece of advice to property managers out there, what would that be?
Well, I'd imagine most people that are in the business today, maybe have a 3 or a 5 year plan, but I would say, be thoughtful about where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, because it's going to guide some of your decision making as far as the technology that you need, the things that you need to prioritize. And if you have a desire maybe to get away from being, the person who has to answer every owner call and things like that, then you can be thoughtful about, what do I need to do? Where do we need to get to in order for me not to have to do that? And maybe start thinking, because that's a problem solving exercise. It can be done, and it can be an amazing thing. I love to think that I think our marketing director is stronger on marketing than I was. I think our business development director, the same thing. That when you can surround yourself with people that can do your job better than you can, and a lot of that will come down to the fact that that's their main area of focus, whereas, I'm the proverbial plate spinner running around trying to keep all the plates spinning. If I can just give a couple of those plates to somebody else to keep spinning, they can do it. They can do that particular activity better than me. And so be reasonable about what you think you can manage. If you have ambitions to grow, then you need to grow your team. And probably the last thing I would say is think about whether you're being reactive or proactive and how you approach your problem solving, because this is an extremely proactive step that you need to take. If this is where I want to go, this is what I have to do. Not, hey, I'm going to buy a company and now I realize I can't keep up with this. I got to hire this. I got to do this. I got to do this. And by the way, where are the processes and procedures? No one seems to know exactly what they should be doing. They do it differently in this market to how they do it in this market. And those are kind of little building blocks that if you can solve those things first, proactively, then you set yourself up to be successful as you go into that next venture. And that proactive reactive thing, I mean, again, I've heard you mention that, or other people on your podcast mention that, that is a mindset that you absolutely have to have. If you're in a reactive phase, get out of that phase. If you do something just because you're responding to the issue of the day, you're in a reactive phase. You've got to have solutions in hand if you're going to move your business forwards.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, that was very powerful, Robin. Thank you once again for your time and for sharing all of those nuggets that are for sure going to be very helpful for operators out there. I look forward to seeing you hopefully at the next event in person. And yeah, thank you very much once again for taking the time. This was super fun. I could keep you here for hours, but
Thanks,
the alarm is
Sebastian.
not letting me go on.
Great to chat. Sorry about the alarm, but
No,
that's
no,
life,
it's all
right?
good. We'll make some editing magic happen behind the scenes.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Robin, for your time. It was great to chat.
All right. Take care.
All right, you too.